from all walks of lives that arrive to the cemeteries and really respect those fallen soldiers, those victims of terror. And I think that the ceremony today, like many years, is highlighted by the fact that these terror attacks are not some ambiguous idea. This is something that we live in today. We've seen a series of terror attacks over the past month and a half, with 15 Israelis who lost their lives during these attacks. And this is a very fresh memory for these families who are joining the many families in Israel who are part of this grieving family. Unfortunately, so many thousands of Israeli families that were affected by these losses. And today we respect the fallen. Again, today we start with a 2-minute siren followed by a ceremony over there in Mount Herzl in Jerusalem.
Right, and that 2-minute siren will begin in just over a minute's time. And you did mention the fact that everybody in Israel knows somebody who was a soldier who was killed or was killed in a terror attack. And that really makes this day maybe a little bit more urgent and present than, for instance, Holocaust Memorial Day, where people don't know personally the victims, or at least most of Israelis don't, but every Israeli does know somebody for whom this day is relevant.
Unfortunately, it's a very real reality for every Israeli living here. And you can see it. You can see it in the streets. You can see it everywhere you go on your way to work today. It's a somber atmosphere today that affects every one of us. Watching those personal stories on television, reading about them, it touches every one of us who lives here and really wants to honor those who lost their lives in order for us to be able to live here today.
Right, Guy Azrael will be with us later in the program as well. Thank you very much for explaining that to our viewers. We see here the beginning of the ceremony at Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, the main ceremony of the day, as everybody is standing up already and prepared for that 2-minute siren, which will sound in just a few seconds' time. And that was the 2-minute siren opening some of these ceremonies that are taking place throughout the country. We see there that the preparations have already been made. We will be giving you live the ceremony at Mount Herzl, which is the main ceremony where some of Israel's major political leaders will be present and will be speaking. In the meanwhile, with me here in studio still, Guy Azriel. So Guy, again, this year, we were talking earlier about the fact that there are these terror victims and living in this reality of terrorist attacks, especially right now that we have in the last month and a half. But actually, the ceremony here is beginning, so let's go live to the ceremony, and we'll be back in studio later for analysis.
7th of December, 1983, he fell during the Galilee Peace War.
המשמר דגל את נשקו. דגל, שק. המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטיף, שק.
Yizkor by Lieutenant Colonel Uri Ron. Uri Ron is the commander of the College of Tactical Command. He served in combat engineering and was wounded twice. He was seriously wounded by an anti-tank missile in Lebanon during the Second Lebanon War. After a long rehabilitation, he returned to serve and was wounded again in an operation against the Hamas tunnels in Gaza by detonating a bomb in 2013. After rehabilitation, he again returned to serve in the IDF. Yizkor, may the people of Israel remember its sons and daughters, loyal and brave, the soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces, its underground fighters, and combatants in Israel's war, and all the members of the intelligence community and security and police forces who gave their lives in the struggle for the redemption of the State of Israel, and all those who were murdered here in Israel and beyond by hands of murderers from terrorist organizations. May all Israel remember and be blessed by their offsprings and mourn the loss of beauty and youth, the sanctity of willingness and deep devotion of those lost in the fierce battles. May we cherish in our hearts the memory of these heroes of Israel's victorious battles forever and ever. A prayer for the souls of the martyrs by Chief Rabbi of the IDF, Eyal Krim. Our brothers and sisters, the heroes, you dedicated your souls for these countries in Israel's battles, in operations, while serving in the IDF, and all the combatants of the undergrounds and all those fallen in the intelligence, police, and prison forces who sacrificed their life for the redemption of Israel. May God remember you. He will revenge your blood, as it said, the blood of the slave will be revenged. God will speed your coming to heaven. It will always be open to you. You will sit with angels in heaven, and may you rest in peace. We shall see the consolence of Zion and to see the resurrection as described by the prophet Ezekiel. So said God, I will open your graves and I will raise you from your graves, my people, and bring you to the land of Israel. And you will know that I am God, and I will raise you from your graves. And I will instill my spirit in you, and I will lay you on your ground, and you will know that I, God Almighty, have spoken. The Kaddish prayer by Shlomo Sharon. Shlomo is the parent of the late Sergeant Asaf, who fell on January 1st, 1999. The Kaddish prayer, the prayer for the dead.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה. בעלמא דיברה חירותה וימליך מלכותה ויתמח פורקנה ויקרא משיחה. בהיכון וביום אחרון ובחיי דחול בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך לעולם לעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם. ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו. לעילה מכל ברכתה שירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירם בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה משמיה חיים ושבע וישועה ונחמה וזבה ופועה וגאולה. וסליחה וכפרה ורווח והצלה לנו ולכל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו וברחמיו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן. אמן.
המשמע יבוא לנוח, עמוד נוח.
אל מלא רחמים.
אל מלא רחמים by the chief cantor Shai Abramson, chief cantor of the IDF.
הכתב, שק.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים טהורים וגיבורים כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים לנשמות חללי מערכות ישראל שנפלו במלחמות ישראל בפעולת הגנה תפקידם ובעת שירותם ושחרפו נפשם למות על קדושת השם ובעזרת אלוהי מערכות ישראל הביאו לתקומת האומה והמדינה ולגאולת הארץ ועיר האלוהים בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרו בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו ושלום על משכבותם ויעמדו לגואלם לקץ הימין ונאמר אמן.
המשמר יציג את נשקו. הצג שק. המשמר יבוא לנוח. עמוד נוח.
נא לשבת.
Please be seated.
קהל נכבד,
Ladies and gentlemen,
ישראל,
the Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett.
המשמר יבוא לנוח. עמוד נוח.
The
President of the state, Mr. Herzog and Mrs. Herzog, the Speaker of the Knesset, MK Miki Levy and Nurit Levy, the President of the Supreme Court, Justice Chayut and her husband David, the 10th President of the State of Israel, Ruby Rivlin, Ministers, MKs, the Chief of Staff, General Kochavi, the Chief Inspector of Police, Shabtai, the Commissioner of the Prisons, Katy Perry, the Head of Mossad, David Barnea, the Head of the Shabak, Ronen Bar, the Chair of WZO, Mr. Chaguel, the Deputy Director and the Head of a Division of the Legacy in the Ministry of Defense, the Mayor of Jerusalem, Leon, the Chair of the Organization of Widows and Orphans, Tami Shelach, the Head of the Yad Labanim Organization in Jerusalem, Doron Rosenfeld Mizrahi, bereaved family, distinguished audience. I will deviate a little from the text that I prepared Every year I come about an hour before the ceremony to meet families. I was walking around and I met the three brothers of Yechiel, 16 and a half years old, who fell in the Gush Etzion in the beginning, the inception of the state. And all of a sudden I see the children of the Moreno family, Avia, Neria,
Noam Israel,
Abba
Eliran,
the father Eliran, a new father, old already, the small sisters. And I cannot but think what Emmanuel would think when he sees Avia, an officer in a unit in the IDF. She's so beautiful, so grown up. Let me just tell you, the children, that Emmanuel and I, not only did we serve together, but we also married in a difference of a few weeks. But Maya and Emmanuel had children way before me. So he talked to me about the children. And there's such a thing. The one who doesn't have children doesn't understand why it's interesting. Why? You know that. So Avia kept talking and said to me, listen, I know everybody says it, but Avia is different. Really, she's the most clever, the most talented. And he wouldn't lay off. And the last phone call with Emmanuel was on a Thursday afternoon, about a day or two after the end of the Second Lebanon War. And as usual, we were complaining. I said, what happened to us? And Emmanuel said, in that very conversation, the people of Israel should have had a shock in order to raise itself once again. And I have no doubt that Emmanuel would have been very, very proud of you, Avia. And you're so grown up. You're even taller than he was. These are the genes of your mother. And I too, I miss your father immensely. The Memorial Day for the Fallen Dead is a sanctified day in the State of Israel. Just a few minutes ago, we stood together as one man and one heart to the shattering sound of the siren. Silence. The silence of thousands of fallen in Israel battles, in fire, in sword, in battle, in war, in training, or an accident. And the memory album is already open by itself, and we remember the smile and the hug, the odor of the body and the last telephone call. We look around and we see new faces tormented, the faces of the new joiners against their will to the large bereaved family of bereavement in Israel. Too big. The heroism of our combatant accompanies us with the bravery of our ancestors through the dawn of Zionism and until these very days as a common thread. The younger generation doesn't know too much, but I'll tell you, Natan Elbaz was born in Morocco. He came to Israel by himself and he enlisted to a combat unit in 52. One day, while he was dismantling hand grenades in a tent in the base, he suddenly heard a click and he realized that the safety catch of one of the grenades was released, and he understood he had 3 minutes to prevent a disaster. He immediately left the tent with the grenade in hand and yelled to his comrades to find shelter. In the second he had left, he realized that he has nowhere to throw the grenade without hurting his friends. He covered it with his body. He ran away from them. The grenade exploded. Natan Elbaz was killed while saving the life of his peers. For his sacrifice, Private Elbaz got the exemplary medal after he passed. Ro'i Klein was born in Ra'anana, not far from where I live today. He enlisted to the IDF and he grew up in the combat unit Egoz. He went to study Torah. He also studied in university. And then he came back to the IDF. In the Second Lebanon War, he was a deputy battalion commander. And during the very fierce battle in Bin Jbeil, a grenade was thrown to the battalion in a very small area, closed. In a fraction of a second, he jumped on the grenade, and in his voice, he said, Shema Yisrael. Roy Klein was killed while saving the life of his peers. For his sacrifice, Captain Roy Klein got the bravery medal after he passed. 52 years separate between the heroism of Natan Elbaz to that of Roy Klein. But the thread of dedication and Jewish heroism connects the two. Natan Elbaz is from Morocco, Roy Klein from Ra'anana. Different in background, but identical in their love. Their love to the land of Israel, their love to the people of Israel, and their faith and love to the state of Israel. Natan Elbaz and Roy Klein, together with all our fallen soldiers, left us a legacy to guard this state. In their death, they decreed to us life together. Brothers and sisters, if we will not be together, we will not be. We have no existence here as tribes in conflict, but just as a varied but unified nation. Our brothers and sisters are buried in the land here, and they deepen the roots of our connection so that we can continue out of these roots, grow a tree of life, a tree with a lot of varied branches, different, beautiful branches. But all these branches and all the leaves are connected to one stem, to one tree, together. Our people craves for unity. How much unity is indebted in very deep in our soul, because we see it in times of crisis, and of course we see it today as well. The day of memorial. Here at this minute, more than 1.5 million Israelis are in this Memorial Day in the military cemeteries. This is a very unique Israeli phenomenon which is unprecedented anywhere else in the world. This huge participation is a testimony to our commitment to the fallen, to the responsibility that is part in the veins of Israel. It's a testimony to the friendship and the respect that we feel to the ones who sacrificed themselves for the state and for us. This is an alliance that we have as a people. This is a declaration that in this Israeli journey, a journey of heroism, of mourning and pain and dedication, we are all partners. We are all together here with one fate and one destiny. Any foreigner will not understand this, but this is who we are. We are determined. We are obstinate. We are full of faith in the justice of our way and our claim to this country. When you act in Nablus, or you are in a base in the north, in Lebanon, and you meet brothers, combatants, when you know one another, their souls connect. When you come to see young people in the recruitment base and they meet other young people, they never met them, but very quickly they become brothers, combatants, a family. They learn to act like one body. They're ready to give their life one for the other. No matter where we grew up, and what is exactly our position, how to shape this state, this country that is so dear to all of us. Citizens of Israel, we are fighting a very vicious enemy. Day by day, we get a reminder that the journey has not ended yet. Our enemies, instead of once and for all building their life and their future, do not stop their will to destroy our life. But how can you compare them to us? The enemy is for years living in poverty and feel miserable, bitter. Whereas we have built here a Jewish state in the country of Israel, a blossoming, optimist state. We built an answer vis-à-vis our enemy, an iron wall of strength. Violence and terror are not natural disasters. They're not fate that we have to agree with. We are going to hit not just those who hit us directly, but even the proxies, those who sent them. The era of safety of terrorists is over. Not just the terrorist himself is going to pay the price, but also the one who sent him. Even if it is distant 1,000 kilometers to the east. An administration that finances terror or arms terror or gives the order to terror will no longer be able to hide with a far-away fear. It already started paying the price, which will only grow. Our enemies will see more and more initiatives, more attacks, more innovation. We are going to get to them in every place, every angle, anytime. In the next conflict, if God forbid we'll have to be there, we will be ready, we will be trained, we will be surprising, not surprised. And we are going to hit our enemy a real blow. We are growing in such scope that at the end of the day, one day, the enemy is going to realize that their dream to destroy us is useless, futile. And only then, perhaps, will come peace and quiet. At this day and always, we don't forget our MIAs, those who didn't know return from battle. Hadar Goldin, Oron Shaul, Abera Mengisto, and Hisham Asad, and the other MRAs. We were there, I was there when we sent those sons. And we are here in order to continue with our commitment to bring them back home. This is our shift. This is our mission. We also don't forget those who are injured in body and soul, those who came back from the war, but the war did not come back from them. We're going to continue to accompany them, the disabled and injured of IDF and the other security systems, in body and soul on their daily battle for life of respect and security. Dear families, all the love that we want to show you this day will not, of course, appease your pain. More than ever, we are required to strengthen that structure which makes all of us into one nation, to prove that we can act together. Not just in the battlefield, but also in the life field. Unity is the basis of our power. Ask for the peace of Jerusalem. Your lovers will be safe. I will speak for my brothers and my comrades. And for our God Almighty, I will ask for good. May the memory of the fallen be blessed and kept in our hearts forever. And now the wreaths are going to be laid. The wreath of the State of Israel will be laid by the Honorable President of the State, Yitzhak Herzog. of the Knesset will be laid by Knesset Speaker Miki Levy. Wreath of the Supreme Court will be laid by the President, Justice Esther Chayut. Wreath of the bereaved families and the Yad Labanim organization will be laid by the chairman of Yad Labanim in Jerusalem, Mr. Doron Rosenfeld Mizrahi, the father of the late Ziv Zakai Mizrahi, who fell on 23rd November 2015, and the brother of Alon Mizrahi, who fell in a hostile act, and Yaakov Seri, brother of Private Yechiel Seri, who fell on May 4th, 1948. The wreath of the bereaved families and the IDF Widows and Orphans Organization will be laid by the organization chairwoman Tami Shelach, widow of the late squadron commander Ehud Shelach, who fell in the Yom Kippur War while on an assault mission over the Suez Canal on October 9th, 1973. Of the Israel Defense Forces will be laid by the Chief of General Staff of the Israel Defense Forces, Major General Aviv Kochavi. Wreath of the Israel Police will be laid by the Inspector General of the Israel Police, Chief Commander Kobi Shabtai. The wreath of the prison services will be laid by the prisons commissioner, Katie Perry. The wreath of the Mossad, Intelligence and Special Operations Institute, will be laid by the head of the Mossad, David Barnea. The wreath of the General Security Service will be laid by the head of the Shabak, Ronen Bar. Of the World Zionist Organization and the Jewish Agency will be laid by the chairman of the WZO and the acting chairman of Jaffe, Yaakov Hagoel. The wreath of the Diplomatic Corps will be laid by the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Zambian Ambassador to Israel, Mr. Martin Muanmambla. Will be accompanied by the Chargé d'Affaires at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Gil Haskel. The wreath of the IDF Disabled Organization will be laid by Avi Lerman, the organization's director, and Veredi Yitzhaki, the chair of the Jerusalem district in the organization of the IDF Disabled. Of the Jerusalem municipality will be laid by the mayor of Jerusalem, Moshe Leon. Please rise for the singing of the national anthem.
משמר אדום. המשמר יחטיף את אשכו. הכתיב, שק. משמר הכבוד, היכון לירי כבוד. המשמר ידגל את אשכו. דגל, שק. טען. 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 המשמר יחטיף את אשכו. הכתיב, שק.
We shall end
התקווה.
anthem התקווה.
משמר ידגל את אשכו. דגל, שק.
עוד לא
המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטיף, שק.
This concludes the memorial service for the fallen in Israel's battles. You are all invited to light a candle of memory in the internet site.
And that was the main ceremony of Memorial Day here in Israel at Mount Herzl in Jerusalem.